Hello and welcome to the LCS report. I'm still so happy that I can say LCS report and not LTA report. But man, do we have some games for you guys. TES versus G2, and then we're predicting T1 versus AL. We got a really good and exciting episode. I'm excited. So let's just get right into it. Top Esports versus G2. I'm not gonna say I called it because I did say it was gonna be a 3-0 for Top Esports, but the games went exactly how I called it. Top esports were getting leads in the early games. Game one, G2 got absolutely destroyed in the early game. They stood no chance. That's how I expected all three games to go. I expected if G2 were to have a chance against top esports, they needed creative, aggressive picks. They needed to find a way to not bleed out in the early game, and then maybe they have a chance. I even mentioned this is not the G2 that gives Hansama Draven and dives bot. And guess what they did? They picked him Draven. They picked him Lucian. They were proxying. I think Elk or not Elk. Jackie was like level 1 at like 3 minutes or something crazy like this. They dove him. They killed him. He denied him CS over and over. They were proxying him. They really did their best to like play 2023 G2, like destroy the bottom lane level of gameplay. And it worked for a game. But again, you're playing against the best early game team at Worlds. It's very difficult for you to do it 3 times in a row. And even though the early games weren't as miserable as they were game one, they still couldn't get advantages to the point where they could go in to these mid to late game fights and win. And even in the Draven game, that didn't happen. And Top Esports just played their game, and G2 with their Ivern, with their Draven, with their Mundo didn't have enough picks, didn't have enough strategies to disrupt what Top Esports wanted to do. They beat, Kanavi's Kiana, which is like a huge thing to do because I think he was undefeated on Kiana or something. He's like probably the best Kiana in the world right now. So they did manage to, in my opinion, punch above their weight class. But this is G2's ceiling against this team. I still think they have a better chance against KT. They probably have a better chance against T1, if I'm being honest. Not saying they would win or they're favored, but they just got stylistically outmatched. How did you feel about the games, Warren?
I mean, it was a complete stump from start to finish, to be honest. And like the only reason they were able to get that game two win was because Lebrov walked up as Bard and was just completely poking the Alistar out and caused they caused like 3 sums within like the first before level 2, and from there he just did like a very very smart proxy, and then it was level 5 to level 2, and the Lucian was just ahead from that because he had a pickaxe to refillable pot. So the, the games was just the game was completely fucked. And as we were saying yesterday, the way G2 had to win this series was not when they were going to these objectives be completely down like a couple thousand gold ahead. Like, and even in game two, there was moments where you thought, oh, maybe TES are going to win this because they clawed it back to equal footing, and then G2 flipped the switch and then was able to win. But it kind of went as expected. I thought G2 would take one game, and this isn't how I even thought it was going to. And they didn't even feel confident in that Lucian pick. You saw Hansam's face just before he picked it in. He's like, I really don't know about this one. But like, thanks to Lebrov, they was able to win a game, and I think he's going to be the one that people are going to probably look at the most as like an area to improve for next year. I know, like with Busio baiting online with like good things come to an end and all that shit. So maybe like yeah.
Yeah, I think one another thing that we mentioned is I do want to give Lebrov his props because he has been playing a lot better since the beginning of the year. I still don't think he's a Mickey. I still don't think he's this person that brings in this extra magic where like you can be down 3,000 gold and you find an engage and all of a sudden the game is playable. The game is winnable. Like that didn't happen. Sure, Caps found like an incredible like Oriana ult to that game 3. It didn't matter. It really didn't matter. G2 is missing that magic. Broken Blade, like he didn't have. I mean, sure they were like constantly diving the Mbessa or killing the Mbessa, but then at the end of the game, Mbessa was like what 2-2, 2-2 and 14. It was like doing more damage than Broken Blade. It didn't matter. They tried to kill him on the Aatrox 369. He was down a little bit. He went in team fights. It didn't matter. They weren't able to take them out of the game. It really didn't feel like they had enough magic, enough spark. I mean, Caps was dying to Akali. Like it's just they felt outclassed. And they didn't have that magic that normally when G2 are outclassed, they have ways where they are better than the enemy team. It just felt like there is no other way for them to be better than the team except completely destroying from minute one. Right? That was the only time it felt like, oh, they can actually win the game. So at the end of the day, it is an East versus West team. And I didn't think G2 were a great team. I think CFO probably would have maybe given a little bit of a more of a fight because they are a team that fights in the early game and G2 isn't. Again, I think the stylistic matchup was just really, really bad for G2.
And the problem is, like, when your only strat is if we don't smash level 1 to level 5, like, there's a problem. That is a big problem with your team. Because there's, like, throughout history, you've seen other ways for teams to take games off of the East that is not, we have to smash you early. And that's the problem with this G2 team is, even, like, domestically, they were a slow starter. And, like, you just can't have that in your team when you're looking to... This is the first time in their organization's history that they didn't make the semifinals when they were in a quarterfinals matchup. And every single series was an Eastern team, to be fair to them. But yeah, maybe they would have had a better showing against like a KT, but I still don't. It still didn't like fill me with hope. And Labrov is obviously going to be one of the major looking points with like champion pool issues, and like you had the argument if there's another support in there, maybe like the outcomes a little different. But I think top are actually a good team, and I'm starting to like come around to the fact okay, they are just a good team, and this isn't the historical chokers. Jackie Love in that game too really tried to bring it back to what because he was consistently and Hung had one of the worst performances of the day on that Alistar
The
game.
Alistar game,
That
oh
was
my god,
terrible. He's oh man, but outside of that, top were fine.
and they still won. That's the crazy thing. They still won.
Not in that game. Well, not in that game too.
Not that game, but like the series.
Yeah.
Normally, you would expect top esports to mentally boom completely and just like lose the thing, but they like. I still expect them to completely and entirely collapse and lose 0-3 in the semifinals. I have no faith in this team. I don't think Kanavi can just like carry against the caliber of T1 and AL. Like, no. But against a team like G2, who again match up very well stylistically to top esports, I think they were cruise control.
Yeah.
All right, we can talk about T1 versus AL, and as usual, I'll let you start with this one, since I usually start with the first topic. What do you have in store for us, T1 versus AL?
I've been going back and forth on this for so long. I think I really, really, really want to put AL, but like until it starts happening, I don't think I can't not put T1 like going through in the series. I think it'd be a 5-game if I'm going to be fully honest, and I just see T1 ever so slightly edging it out. Just from literally, there's no like it's just a gut feeling. There's no analytical thought behind it. It's just like when the chips are down, this roster has consistently, well, this core has consistently found ways to win in these world matches, and yeah, like we need to get Door on his chip.
Yeah, I do think that AL should be favored. I think T1 have the energy where coming into the semifinals, they switch things up, or quarterfinals, right? Like the form that we saw T1 in to what we should see T1 in should change. Every single year it has, and they performed much better. It's just, do I trust that it's going to happen again? Not really. Look, even though I'm going to say that I think T1 is going to lose, every part of my being wants T1 to win. Not because I'm a T1 fan, I'm a Hollow Life fan in the LCK. But I'm a huge Doran fan, and I have been requesting this dude every single international tournament he goes to. Every single time. I have yet to get a Doran interview. I've yet to get a Hanwha Life interview to begin with, but I've yet to get a Doran interview, and I just really, really want to interview this guy before the end of the year. And I didn't get him for tomorrow. So like a big part of me is like I want T1 to win so that I have more opportunities to interview Doran. But I think this is the end of the road for Doran and T1. I think AL stylistically match up quite well against T1. I think one of the things that LPL teams this year have struggled with is having a relatively bad late game, right? Top esports, best early game in the world, pretty much. And then look at the mid to late game, not that clean, right? I mean, it's still clean for a Western perspective, but for an Eastern perspective, not really. Look at BLG. The meme was bad late game. That was the meme of like the team. Look at IG versus T1. IG were legitimately getting leads and throwing them, right? It wasn't like a stomp. IG were getting leads and then absolutely throwing the game away. But then when you look at AL versus Hanwha Life, look at AL versus Gen G. This was not a team that had an incredible early game and then all of a sudden collapsed in the mid to late game. No, this was a team that was down early, that was taking punches and could punch back. And one of the best things about T1 internationally is they know how to throw punches. That, like, they don't play the meta. They don't play like your classic LCK team. They have their style, and their style is very aggressive and pushes the pace of the game. And that's something that AL is very good at come mid to late game. They are still an LPL team when it comes to the fighting, but they are a little bit more controlled, which I think matches quite well against T1. I think the place where I would have wanted T1 to look like they're playing the best is jungle and support, and their jungle and support don't look like the best players in the world. I mean, Carrier for most of the year was the best support in the world, right? And he's not. He's not playing to that level. And you could argue, oh, he's going to come into the semifinals and play well. It's just we haven't seen it. Owner has his worst international tournament of his entire career right now. He's not playing bad. He's just not playing at an Owner level, right? Which is like top 2 in the world. He's not. And then you look on the other side, and Kael is playing like the best support, if not the second best support, and Tarzan is playing like the best jungler in the world. Like the places where T1 usually finds their footing in order to win championship after championship are collapsing a little bit, are not showing up, which makes it scary for T1. As someone who wants T1 to win, exclusively to get a Doran interview.
And I think
I don't know. It's scary.
These teams are actually quite close, I would feel, in terms of like how they've both performed in the early game. The only difference I think that T1 has had far more like success in pushing the pace early with like early towers, especially because I was actually looking earlier and AO's first 3 tower percentage is 20%. That shows that they are not like they haven't been this solid early game team. It's like you were saying earlier, it's the mid to late game team fights where they've like excelled the most. The problem with that is that T1 historically has been that mid to late game team, and against like even the best teams and like, early game teams in the world, they've still just been able to outfight you come like the last few dragons. And this is where I think like these teams are so poised for like a 5-game series, because I feel like they're both just going to go back and forth on this, and that's why I feel T1 will edge it out, because if this is able to be close, I think T1 has it just from the like experience factor.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of experience, you have Tarzan and Flandre. Hope, he's mega experienced. I think you could say like, okay, Kael also has experience. So I mean, this team doesn't have world's winning experience besides Flandre, obviously, but there's a lot of years of League of Legends between them. They made it to MSI like in third seed. They made it to EWC finals. They made it to Demacia Cup. Like they've been to every single finals, barring one. I guess technically 2, right? Because 1 LPL. So they've gained a lot of experience this year. They made it to more finals than T1. I'll say that much. So it's, I don't know. I think AL are going to do it. I think AL are going to be the first Chinese team to beat T1 in the quarterfinals. The first team to ever beat T1 in the quarterfinals. And I don't think it's because T1 are bad. Don't get me wrong. I just think AL are like a top 2 team in the world.
Yeah.
So are T1, but I think AL matches better. I think AL matches better into T1 than T1 versus Gen G, for example. I think T1 would have a better chance against Gen G. Not because I think AL would beat Gen G, but because, like, again, stylistic matchups. So I'm going to give it 3-2 to AL. I think you said 3-2 to T1.
3-2-2-1.
Yeah. But look, honestly, if you're right, I would be very surprised. The only thing I'm asking is please give us a 5-game series. Like, look, even if T1 just win, just give us 5. Come on. Like we got a pretty quick 3-0, then we got a 2-3-1s. Okay, the first 3-1, game 2 was an hour long, so maybe that counts as an honorific 3-2. But I want to hear some Silver Scrapes. I want to see if they're gonna play the new orchestral like
I did
style
say
of
this
Silver
is how.
Scrapes.
Yeah, I may do that after this
It's
pod.
nice. It's nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice. But at the end of the day, I think it is AL favored. Who knows? Maybe T1 look like T1 from spring, and they come in and they absolutely smash. I just the indications that normally are there were like, oh, T1 might pull a T1. They're not there this year, so
Yeah.
it's scary.
I'm just like a firm believer in like gut feeling, and like there's no analytical thought behind it. It's until I see it happen, because it hasn't happened before, I'm going to put make this a closer series than maybe. It's like you never know. Maybe AL is just a complete, and like they should be the heavy favorites, and they just come out and they smash T1 3-0, and then we call it a day, and then we don't have to have this narrative like anymore. But until that like, while that narrative is still there, I'm just gonna play the easy card and just harp on it.
Yeah, I mean that is fair, right? You kind of expect things to stay the same, right? There's no reason to predict against them when they keep performing, but we'll see. Flandre going to Bob Doran. I don't know. Maybe we see the return of the Krug Lord. I don't know, Mr. Critter. I'm hoping it's exciting like matchup. I'm hoping Doran shows up. I'm hoping Flandre. I want everybody to play out of their minds. I want to see some really good League of Legends because this could be a World's Finals. I know we said this about Genji versus Life, but this could be a World's Finals matchup. Like, imagine this was the finals.
Yeah.
You're in Chengdu, China. You're playing in front of this incredible stadium that fits like a bajillion people, and you just have T1 versus AL. My God, that would be incredible. Like we had two final matchups in our quarterfinals, and I'm pretty sure the winner of those quarterfinal matchups are going to be our finalists. But this is very tense. This is very, very tense. And I wouldn't be surprised if it goes all five and if we have like an hour long game as well in one of these games. So we'll see. Do you want to talk about FlyQuest? Because we've gotten a few more tidbits, one that you alluded to. Since unless you have something else to finish up the
No,
topic.
no, we're good on that front.
All right. So Cheap esports. Now take this with a grain of salt. Salt. It is cheap esports. It is quite early on in the season. Things do tend to change. That's one thing people were criticizing Travis about when he was doing his roster leaks and rumors before cheap esports. Is that sometimes he would predict something. He would call something out, and he's pretty convinced that it's going to happen because they're literally about to sign, and then things fall through, and then people are like, "Oh, he was wrong." So it is the beginning of the off season. It's not officially not the beginning of the off season, but it's the beginning of like the dominoes falling. I think FlyQuest members are the biggest dominoes. If I had to guess, it's Quid and FlyQuest, right? Because like wherever Quid goes and whatever the FlyQuest members decide to do, that's going to shape the entire off season. So it is the beginning of dominoes falling. We got the rumor that Whippo is looking to keep playing, which is something he said in his exit interview. I feel like people didn't watch that interview. But he literally said, I want to keep playing. I don't care where it is. I want to keep performing. I want to make it back to World Finals. Like he still wants to compete. So, but the rumor is he's no longer on FlyQuest. He's exploring options in EU, NNA, in top lane, and in jungle. Now, we could have said this from the beginning of this year when they signed Gakkos. It seemed like a transition piece to get rid of Bwipo. And then the Bwipo drama that happened, like it just seemed, even if this team made it to semifinals, you could see a world where they still get rid of Bwipo and put in Gakkos. They've already been training his replacement. Now, if all the stuff like them collapsing at Worlds changes that, who knows? But what are your first impressions of like, yeah, Bwipo's gone from FlyQuest?
I'm not surprised, and even before the whole drama came out with the things he said on stream, I was pretty sure like he was not going to be on the team anyways, and I'm not even convinced they still even fulfill like the whole Gatkos development. Like I'm not fully convinced by that either, because if you're potentially losing Inspired, like that's even more like the weight and the pressure of delivering is even heavier on like a player like his shoulders who's sort of 17, right? Like you're like there is no more like Varens really to like um ease him into this pro player life, because now like you're gonna have to perform, because FlyQuest, like you're if you lose Inspired and Bwipo, who were like pretty much the engine of FlyQuest, even though like Busio was a very, very valuable player, I do feel like Inspired and and Whipper were like the two engines behind this team, you've lost your engine. So like you have the body, like you have the nice car, but now you have no engine. So I'm interested to see where FlyQuest goes if they do like have to look elsewhere. But I'm not surprised with Whipper. I'm just unsure on what team picks him up though. That's like a top team because I don't think, unfortunately, I don't think any of the top teams are touching him with a 10-foot pole. Even like
Fnatic
because
would. Fnatic would.
sure, but I don't think from NA specifically. I don't think anyone's touching him with a 10-foot pole.
I don't think Team Liquid are going to bring him back. Shopify, obviously not, right? Sentinels, maybe? But I feel like Dokla is more of a fit for Sentinels. We'll see. Like, I think Sentinels might. I think he would fit the brand.
Shopify would be interesting because like I
He's
know,
not going to
I know,
Shopify. Fudge is our baby.
I know, but like I'm saying, I would, I think that roster's a little bit more exciting with Booker on it, but like it's not happening obviously, so I'm not even gonna like, entertain that thought.
Yeah, I don't think something like that would happen. I think Fudge really proved himself, and I don't think we're looking to change. Obviously, we have a hole in the mid lane that could be filled up. But the other thing that kind of is a little telling is it's really early on, and they've already kind of moved off of Bwipo. This is all like rumors. What happens, like you said, if Inspired leaves? Does everybody just say, "Oh, I don't want to play on FlyQuest anymore"?
And
Like,
that was my
imagine
initial thought.
we have 5 players leave.
And that was my initial thought is like, okay, Flacos is this like big team at the moment, but I always felt they were the sum of their parts. And what like how are they now going to like they do have the money to be fair, and that's the one thing I will give Flacos is they do have the money to go and make acquisitions to build again around because you have to keep your bot lane at all costs. If one of those leaves, you're in big trouble.
I think both leaves. I don't think there's an option where only one leave. If Busio leaves, doesn't Masu just go to Cloud9? We have like the rumor is that Sven is going to be on SK, right? So then all of a sudden he has a really solid like top team spot on C9. Maybe they pick up both Masu and Busio. Like I feel like if one of them leaves, both of them leave. No,
Maybe, but I don't. I think it's so hard. I think FlyQuest are going to be fine. I don't think the world's going to collapse if they lose Inspired. I think they're still going to be like they have the ambition and the people behind them to go again. I just it's not going to be of Inspired, so that maybe the ceiling isn't as high. But it's all dependent on, in my opinion, where Quid goes. I think I think it's personally between FlyQuest and Team Liquid. Like if like I think where I guess I know there was a report that FlyQuest were not in the running. Well, not they wasn't one of the names listed in the initial report. The one thing I'll say about that is they were still in the tournament when that report came out. So and that hasn't been like they haven't gone back and updated. But I think the one advantage I think FlyQuest has is they already have actually that maybe that they don't even have Inspired because his contract's expired. So I was gonna say
I
that
mean
they
it
don't
is a
even.
negotiating tool to be like, hey, Inspired, we want to bring in Quid. Will you stay with us? Like
Like, Flacos don't even. I was gonna say Flacos don't even have that bargaining chip. Of they already have one of the two pieces that I think one of those teams will have because
they
C9
don't
are,
have them. Yeah.
C9 are keeping Loki, so Quid's not gonna go down, and it's very very dependent on does Inspired want to play with Quid. I don't. Who knows? I think he's more probably thinking for himself, and whichever team can offer the best package, he will go down. That's how it's gonna go really. And it looks like
Yeah.
EU is not, according to Wooloo yesterday, um, that it's likely that Inspired stays in NA and like he's talking to teams, and that's very interesting to me, like who those teams are, because I personally, and we'll save this for another episode, but I personally don't think it's like Shopify. If you're Sentinels, um, maybe you can because they're going with a pretty good Valorant roster, but they're not. It's not like massive spending. They have like a very very insane academy, so they're just kind of plucking and picking up from their academy. So like a lot of their heavy stars are gone. So now there will be extra money to invest in NA, and like if you're looking for players, like imagine like your first two pickups are Quid and Inspired. That's a pretty big welcome into the league.
So the reason I bring this up actually is not because going back to one of the points that you made is like FlyQuest will be fine even if they lose Inspired. They have very good solid structure. Andrew Barton being there, like Mithy being as one of their coaches. Mithy and Nuke Duck have done a great job. If they manage to retain Busio, like they do have the building blocks, right? Not to mention Arrow, like they have a very good coaching staff. My issue is Worlds is in North America next year. This is when you want to have the 2024, 2025 FlyQuest roster. This is when you want to keep it for just one more year so that you can like show up at Worlds.
Players don't have.
And if you lose Inspired, you are in a rebuild year. You are not in a championship winning year, right? You are in a rebuilding year. And I don't think it is the best option to be rebuilding on the year where Worlds is in North America. It's the same thing I told Shopify when they first came in. I was like, look, build a roster, do whatever you need to do, take your time. But when Worlds is in North America, that's when you win the championship. You can have a build up roster, bring in rookies, figure out what you want to do. When Worlds is in North America in 2026, that is when you need to peak.
So the thing is, it's all dependent on like Busio, in my opinion, because I think if you're Inspired, you're looking at the rest of the league. I'm sorry, there's not a support remotely even close to that kid. So yes, Masu may have he did have a really big drop off this year. Like he was not anywhere close to the level like we saw of him last year. But I think that's enough still for me to, if I'm looking at Busio staying on FlyQuest, it's like, okay, that's enough for me. Because Quad, I don't know where he goes. Well.
No, just Raichi in chat. Ni hao, New York. Dokla here. Sorry.
I think it's between FlyQuest and TL to build like the quote unquote super team. Because both of them are going to be looking at Inspired and Quid, if I'm being honest. And they both have very good bot lanes. I just think where FlyQuest has the edge is they have Busio and Team Liquid doesn't. So, and even with Masuan's performing, it was more than enough to win championships, right? So, it's not like Yon is the difference maker in those two bot lanes. It's the support.
Yeah, I mean, I think Masu has been underappreciated. I think this year he did a much better job at his lane phase, which is something that he struggled. I think he's much more well-rounded. Yes, he doesn't have those highs of his team fights that he did last year, but I think FlyQuest also played different this year. So I don't necessarily think he's not nowhere near his potential of last year. I just think he's changed his style, if that makes sense.
Maybe.
I still consider him one of the best in North America.
Of course.
All right, I think that's everything we have. Tomorrow we will be going live, probably right after the games. The past couple of days we've been doing it a little later. But yeah, tomorrow, probably just right after the games. Hopefully we get 5 banger games. We will be there to talk about the semifinals, predictions, to talk about just AL versus T1. That's going to be really exciting. And any other news that happens in the meantime, we'll be covering that as well. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow.